By this point, like I said, we went through everything, and you should have your tone of the amp dialed in. And I think we went pretty close. Anyway, we'll be adjusting a little bit again, and that's another thing is we'll be moving the microphones. But now it says now move the heads into the control room, and this is what we usually do in my process.
The magic of TV.
Through the magic of TV. Yeah. My normal process, normally, obviously, we're not in a recording studio, but so this is our control room. We have to imagine that, this is our isolation booth. This room is completely separate, and we'll be able to, ideally, we wouldn't be hearing the sound from the cabinets live in the space here, but we're just in an open space. So we dial in, we get the sound of the amp in the room, and then we usually bring the amps in the control room, and there's usually a speaker pass through, either through the wall or a panel or whatever. So then we'll be able to, the cabinets ideally would be isolated, we wouldn't hear them, and then now we would be listening through our speakers and listening to mic positioning, and also have the ability to, as we're tracking in the song, to be able to adjust the sound as we go. Sometimes I'll do that, I'll be grabbing things. If we need to clean up a part or whatever while he's playing, I'll literally he'll be playing and I will kick the gain down. And then I'll be playing and then he wants to go for this one part and it goes heavy and I'll just go and just snap the knob all the way to the right. And it's almost a little bit of performance on my side along with the player. But I mean, I'm reacting to what he's doing. He's listening to the music, he's reacting. Again, it's not looking at a screen, it's like live, you're hearing it, and that's what live performance is. It's the interaction in the band side of it, it's the interaction of the different players together. And it's like when I'm in the control room working with a guitar player, I treat it very much the same way. I will, a lot of times, he'll be doing it, and we'll show a little bit about guitar pedals, and I'll be, playing with some guitar pedals while he's playing and just twisting and working the sound, and it's like...
It was funny, we talked about yesterday, we were hanging out with someone after the show, and we were talking about, he came out to Europe on tour with us one time, and he was just supposed to be vacationing, hanging out, seeing the world, and he ended up doing lights for us because he knew every rhythm and every little nuance, and that's because when he does records with us, he's not like just looking at a screen, moving things around and editing. He's playing along, he's feeling the music. So by the time we're done with the record, he's able to go on tour with us and hit every nuance and vibe and bring the lights down, and that's really just an extension of what he's doing in the studio. So if your producer's doing their job, in my opinion, then they're not just a computer technician. They should be able to leave with that kind of feeling that they were in the band for that month or however long you were doing it, and feel emotionally attached to it because they do get it.
Right, but it's also playing with the band, not working against it, and not saying I'm the producer and this is what I say goes. It's really working your way into what the band does and just trying to maximize what the band does. And that goes to each individual instrument, but it's as a whole, as a philosophy. So. It's more of an organic process of just really trying to adjust and feel what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish and kind of working towards that. So we have everything in here, and are we hooked up with the amp? We are. Okay, so let's plug in here, and we're going to start positioning the mics, and we are going to need, is Kellen coming in? Kellen?
He'll be in a sec.
Oh, okay.
James Trashy on the chat room was asking, do you ever use stereo techniques as just like a Bloomelin for a specific cone, just on one cone?
I have, but usually if I'm using a stereo technique, I'm doing it for a specific effect, but not, I will do a stereo technique on, for instance, an amp such as a Roland Jazz Chorus 120, which is a stereo kind of amp. It has this wonderful stereo chorus on it. It's a combo amp, and it's two speakers, and the chorus and the tremolo goes between the two speakers, and it really has this wonderful thing. Or sometimes we've done guitars through a Leslie cabinet, which is a rotating speaker cabinet, and I will do a stereo technique for that. But I usually, for a single source guitar, no, I don't usually use a stereo technique.
Double miking, but bussing and committing. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean,
Not
but yeah,
stereo.
stereo. No, you know, absolutely. Doing a stereo technique on guitar. I mean, I could get into a little bit about that, about an MS mic technique. That's one of my favorite things if
Cool.
I'm doing stereo. I mean, I can demonstrate that a little bit.
Maybe later in the day. I
Later in
guess.
the
Let's
day, possibly.
flow.
But yeah, no. Generally, it's on guitar, unless again, which one of the things I will be showing would be a close and ambient setup, and that is a way I'll do stereo, but almost not really stereo. I mean, it is, but again, to record a guitar close mic'd with the mics that we're showing, and then have an ambient mic like at the player's head height that I showed yesterday, and then panning that to the opposite side to give a space of the amp in the room. So it's kind of that.
Great. Okay.
But yeah, but stereo miking techniques, not as much, unless it's really more of a stereo situation, 2 cabinets or a stereo amp.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Quickly also to review the signal chain that we have here. So that we have the microphone, obviously, going into the preamp with or without EQ. In this instance, it's without EQ. It's a Summit dual tube preamp. And then going into a summing mixer, in our instance, it's the Mackie 1642 on line input. So what one thing on this that I'm gonna get into really quickly. What I do in my studio, I have the ability to summon a few different things. I have a channel limited summing mixer, and then I have my Neotech console, and I also have a passive one that's really just it's just 2 in, 1 out, and it's just completely passive. You plug in 2 mic preamps into it, and it just sums it to an output, and you're adjusting the blend only with the output side of the mic preamp. So if I had the passive one, literally the blend between the 2 mics would be, it's like, oh, let's bring up our first mic. Okay, now let's fold in our second and just play around with the outputs just to get the blend, like louder or softer on this way. On this side of it, we're gonna just select pretty much a standard output, and then use the Mackie to get the blend between the 2 mic preamps that we have here. One thing that's great, on this side of it, we're doing the Mackie on the line in. So what that does is, if we wanted to EQ the mics, say normally sometimes, you know, I have like a bunch of like Neve and Focusrite things that have an EQ along with the preamp, that if we need to do EQ, it's right there. So if you don't have that ability and you just have a couple of basic mic preamps, and like a lot of people have the API type 500 series racks that they're just usually pre's without an EQ, and if you wanted to get some EQ in there before you get the signal to summing, a way to do it on this with the Mackie would be, because if you go line in, you're actually going through the whole signal chain in the console, and you have some ability, you have a basic 3-band EQ, and if you wanted to add a little top or bottom or sweep around and find the frequency that's right on the mids, you could. If you wanted to go for a cleaner signal chain, and you go, okay, we're gonna go the completely purest route and 0 EQ. We're not gonna EQ anything, and a lot of people subscribe to that. I do sometimes, but my philosophy is, you know, get the sound as close as you can without EQ, and then if you need a little extra, because especially in the hard rock and metal world, you know, the sounds are unnatural. You know, they are kind of unnatural. I mean, they're a little processed. So to me, the EQ is never a bad thing, but get as good as you can. Don't just, you know, sometimes, you know, I fall prey to it. I'll just, you know, immediately just not even think, like, especially on a quick thing for like even a demo style or whatever, you know, and you're not really doing so much and focusing on the tone, you know, like the positioning, getting really deep into it. And it's like, oh, I need something really quick, and I'll just, you know, throw up the preamp, and then like, oh, quick, it needs a little, you know, and like adjust the EQ and just tweak it, and just, you know, oh, needs a little mid. Okay, that's good. You know, I fall prey to that too. Even when I'm working on legitimate things that, you're really like trying to spend time and get the best thing possible. Sometimes you have to go, wait a minute, hold on. And I'll start grabbing the EQ and I'm like, wait a minute, stop. And I'll take it off and then start moving the mics and try and get the position. So I always get the position best. So if you're going that purist route and don't want to ever touch the EQ, but you want to go into the summing mixer, like something like this that has EQ on it and you don't want to go through all the extra electronics, another way to do it, on the back of the mixer here, there's channel inserts. These ones are a TRS, so it's send and return. It comes to one jack, and you can get a breakout cable that goes from one stereo tip ring sleeve cable to two, and one would be send and one would be return, like going, say if you were patching in a compressor into this channel. So it's send and return, send going to the compressor, return coming out of the compressor back into the channel. But if you use the inserts, you can patch into just the return of the insert, and the return generally, depending, I'm not really sure of the signal flow of the Mackie, but for the most part, the return is usually past the EQ section. So when you patch into the return, you're basically just accessing, you're putting it in basically before the fader, and that's it. You're bypassing the line input, the line amp, so you're not getting extra coloration from the line amp. And on most mixers, like mixers with a patch bay, you can do that. On like my Neotech, on any mixer, you can plug into the return and it'll bypass the EQ. On the Neotech that I have, it actually goes past the EQ except for the low frequency, which doubles as a high pass filter, which I'll show about high pass filters in the mixing section. So that gives a more purist sound. So if you can patch in, we didn't do that on this because I wanted to show that you possibly could do some EQing if you needed to on the Mackie.
How greatly does the mixer with the EQs at zero color sound, in your opinion? Does it really often?
It can. I mean, again, I'm saying it from a quote unquote purist standpoint. Mm-hmm. So, if you're trying to get as little color relation as possible, get into the mixer, go into the return.
Bypass, yep.
It's almost the same thing as when we were talked about yesterday about patching into the power section of a head.
Right.
Remember when I talked about that yesterday? Bypassing the preamp. Same concept. So if you go into the return, you're getting rid of the EQ and you're literally just using the faders for summing.
Yeah.
So summing mixer, and then out of the summing mixer, a lot of times I'll go to a compressor just a little bit, just to either for an actual effect, especially for heavy music, to try and, for the palm muting kind of jun 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 kind of thing, trying to get a little bit of extra pump on that. There's a specific kind of sound that you get, especially with an 1176. So compressor or not, a lot of times I don't use a compressor. And then possibly to another EQ after the compressor. More often the secondary EQ is when I'm using a compressor in the chain, because the compressor will sometimes suck out the low end or suck out the high end because of what the compressor by nature is doing. Like if you have a guitar signal that's got a lot of bottom end, the compressor is going to react a certain way, and the detection circuit is going to reduce the gain in the signal because there's so much bottom end. So it's going to get rid of the perceived bottom end coming out of it. So if you want to maybe still get that effect of that pumping sound and how it's affecting everything, and then, okay, well, we need a little bottom end after that because the compressor is taking that away. So maybe put an EQ after it. If not, there's no rules. Again, it's just whatever's feeling right or whatever is really going to ultimately get the end result of what you're trying to achieve. And then from that into our interface, back into the computer. And I showed that, what we have here, the preamp, the Mackie, 1176, the Quartet.